Hi, I'm Marc, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on European politics. And as you can hear, I still have the mother of colds. Federal Interior Minister Nancy Faeser has called for a fairer distribution of war refugees from Ukraine in the EU. Should the Russian war of aggression lead to further large-scale refugee movements from Ukraine, a fairer distribution in Europe will be inevitable. That's what the Social Democratic politician from Germany told the newspapers of the Funke Media Group. Then our Eastern European neighbors, but also we, must be relieved, she said. So far, Poland has taken in over 1.5 million Ukrainian refugees, Germany over 1 million, but Spain only 160,000. It can't stay like this, said Faeser. Russia's attack on Ukraine marked its first anniversary on Friday, by the way. On the anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine, the military leadership in Kiev reports that the Russian armed forces have suffered heavy losses. Since the war began on February 24th last year, 145,000 Russian soldiers have been killed, 790 of them on Wednesday alone, according to Thursday's list. There is no current official information from Moscow on this, nor are the losses on the Ukrainian side known. The list of casualties suffered by Russian attackers, which is updated daily by the Ukrainian side, also included 299 warplanes, 287 helicopters, and 3,350 battle tanks destroyed or captured. In addition, 2,352 Russian artillery systems were destroyed. Neither this information nor that of the soldiers killed can be independently verified, though. Most recently in December, Russia had named 6,000 losses on its own side. American estimates assume that around 200,000 Russians have been either killed or wounded in Ukraine so far. Conversely, at the end of the year, the leadership in Moscow spoke of more than 60,000 Ukrainian soldiers killed, while in Kiev there were talks of around 13,000. In Lithuania, authorities have arrested 2 people on possible sanctions evasion and suspected smuggling of fertilizers from neighboring Belarus. In addition, more than 3,000 tons of fertilizers worth over 2 million euros were confiscated, as the investigators said on Thursday in Vilnius. According to the investigation, a front company registered in Belarus and not subject to sanctions could have been used to circumvent international sanctions. Lithuanian investigative media recently reported that trucks and trains carrying Belarus-made fertilizer continue to cross the Lithuanian border. To do this, they exploited a loophole in the sanctions regulations that relate to specific companies and not to goods. Other Belarusian companies that are not on the sanctions list are listed as suppliers on official documents. In the conflict with Belarus, the EU had repeatedly imposed sanctions on the authoritarian country and its ruler Alexander Lukashenko. These include trade restrictions and a ban on transactions with the Belarusian Central Bank. Russia has fired thousands of missiles at Ukraine within a year, according to Kiev sources. A total of around 5,000 missile attacks were registered, said Ukraine General Staff Representative Oleksiy Romov on Thursday in Kiev. In addition, more than 45,000 airstrikes were flown with jets, helicopters, and drones. Due to the lack of precise missiles, Russia is also increasingly using anti-ship missiles of the type Ch-22 against targets on the ground. The use of such a mass of missiles in the war is considered unprecedented. Russia started its war of aggression against Ukraine, as I said, a year ago on February 24th. Since October, the country's energy system has also been targeted with missiles and drones. Nevertheless, the Ukrainian energy suppliers have always succeeded in restoring the power supply. Finland wants to deliver 3 Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine. This was announced by Finnish Defense Minister Mikko Savola on Twitter on Thursday. There are no cannons on the tanks, but they are equipped with machine guns. That's what the minister told at a press conference, adding that the vehicles are specially designed for demining. According to reports from the state broadcaster Yle, the 6 of the approximately 200 Leopard 2 tanks in Finland are mine clearance vehicles. Training courses on the use and maintenance of the tanks will also be held, at least according to a press release from the ministry. At the same time, the government announced further arms deliveries to Kiev. The Nordic country, which is currently seeking NATO membership, already signaled in January that it could supply some Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Finnish President Sauli Niinistö recently stated that the Finnish contribution would not be very large numerically. They have a very long border with Russia and are the only non-NATO country with Leopard tanks. Just before the first anniversary of the start of the war in Ukraine, the Estonian parliament has called for more determined support for the country under attack from Russia. In a statement adopted in Tallinn on Wednesday, MPs from the Baltic, EU and NATO country condemned Russia's military aggression and pledged Estonia's assistance to Ukraine. The Estonian MPs also called for legal consequences for those responsible for the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine, and at the same time, they condemned in no uncertain terms any attempts to allow Russian and Belarusian athletes back to international competitions and the Olympic Games. Finland's president intends to approve the legislation required for NATO membership immediately after the parliamentary decision planned for next Tuesday. "I'll sign it right away like I'm used to," Niinistö said at a security meeting of the Nordic countries at the country estate of Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson on Wednesday. If there were practical reasons against it, he could also wait, but not until the Finnish parliamentary elections on April 2nd. If Parliament in Finland gives the green light next week, the Finnish side will be able to join the Western Defence Alliance. However, 2 of the 30 NATO countries, Turkey and Hungary, still have to ratify the admission. Everyone else has already agreed. Against the background of the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine, Finland applied for membership together with Sweden last May. However, Turkey is blocking Sweden's entry into NATO, mainly on the grounds that the country is not taking consistent enough action against terrorist organizations. It is therefore currently unclear whether Finland could initially be included in the alliance on its own. During his visit to Warsaw, Poland's head of state Andrzej Duda asked US President Joe Biden to move more weapons and military equipment to US military bases in his country. "My proposal was received very positively," Duda told TVN24 on Wednesday, after a meeting between representatives of the Eastern European NATO countries and Biden. Duda did not say what kind of weapons it should be. "Laying weapons is an easier decision than increasing the presence of US soldiers in Poland," the president said. According to the Defense Ministry in Washington, around 11,000 US troops are currently stationed in Poland, most of them on a rotating basis. The EU and NATO member country has an important function as a logistical hub for the military support of Ukraine, which is being attacked by Russia, and they will deliver Western weapons. Fearing that the conflict could escalate, Poland is currently arming itself massively and is pushing for a strengthening of NATO's eastern flank. Belgium is arming itself against possible Russian sabotage actions from the sea. Justice and North Sea Minister Vincent van Quickenborne confirmed to the AFP news agency on Wednesday that the Belgian Navy sighted a suspicious Russian ship off the coast in November. "It's worrying because we know the risk of sabotage after what happened around Nord Stream," he said, referring to the explosions on both gas pipelines in September. "We have to be vigilant," said van Quickenborne. According to the minister, it is apparently the same ship that the Netherlands had previously sighted in its own waters. In doing so, it had turned off its mandatory AIS radio, which allows authorities to identify and locate vessels. "We have decided to invest millions of euros in purchasing software to better track such activities," said van Quickenborne. In addition, the government has made it possible by law to equip offshore wind turbines with cameras. In cases of sabotage or espionage, it's also fundamentally possible to confiscate a boat. On Tuesday, van Quickenborne said the ship's voyage must undoubtedly be viewed in the broader context of the Ukraine war. The occupation's motives are unknown, but the government in Brussels is not naive. This applies in particular if the ship behaves suspiciously near their wind farms, underwater pipelines and data cables, and other critical infrastructure. In September, a series of underwater explosions destroyed parts of the Nord Stream pipelines carrying Russian natural gas to Germany. According to the German Federal Republic Prosecutor's Office, the investigations have so far produced no evidence that Russia is behind it. Russia, for its part, speaks of sabotage on the pipelines and calls for an independent investigation. In January, the EU and NATO set up a joint working group to protect Europe's critical infrastructure. To this end, NATO set up a new coordination center at its Brussels headquarters in mid-February to be headed by the retired German Lieutenant General Hans-Werner Wirmann. And this concludes this week's report on European politics. I'll see you again tomorrow on the politics of the European Union. I'll be back.